Blog Talk Radio.
Live from the nation's capital, it's Quintessential Listening, Poetry, with host Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram.
Anthony Ingram. I'd like to welcome you to Quintessential Listening Poetry, a different kind of poetry call-in show. This is the last episode of 2018. This is the last night of 2018, and I'd like to say Happy New Year to everyone. Tonight, our very special guest is acclaimed poet Ahmad Al-Khatat. Ahmad, are you with me?
Yes, I am with you, Michael.
All right, fantastic. It's the end of 2018, and this is such a fantastic opportunity for you to share your work with our audience, and let's get started. Let me ask you a question.
Sure,
why do you believe that poetry is important?
Well, I believe poetry because, I believe every single one of us, as a poet, I believe, we have something to offer to the society. Some people, offer the society with money, with, doing kindness, Us as a poet, as a writer, I believe that our works will reflect to people and make people feel better and better. And that's why I believe in poetry. Yeah.
All right. I like that answer. What sparked your love of poetry? What? Tell me about the beginnings. What sparked your love of it?
Well, there's so many things happen. One of them, I started writing when I was 10. I'm going to be honest with you. My parents, they support me from the beginning. Especially my mom and my dad, they saw me into the word of poetry, and I love, because I'm a type of person who doesn't love to share to anybody, I wasn't that type of someone who open up easily to anybody, right? So, when I start writing, my parents, they start supporting me. They start buying me books about poetry, step by step. But, I started getting more serious in the idea of poetry when I was 16, 17. Especially after the war we had in 2003. I noticed, so many people, were running away from the war, and so many people were desperate, looking for some people to share their stories because, back then we didn't have social media like today. Before it was everything by Hotmail, Messenger, or newspaper you get. So, I was what, let me change my writing from Arabic into English. So when I started writing in English, I got so much good feedback, and so many people supported me. And then as I told you before, I started writing about people from my own country, people who were orphans. Then I started meeting with the homeless. They started telling me their stories, widows, bunch of different kind of people. Mostly people from outside of the country. And I found their stories were unique. Because poetry was never cute to write about something like love. Maybe you love to write about love poems. I'm not gonna say I don't write love poems. I do love writing about love poems, but we have to think about others. Because whenever you write a poem and you publish it or you put this somewhere, it's gonna be owned by the people. It's not gonna be your own. So you have to share what the people in your country or the people who you're surrounded with, so they can feel others they think about them.
Yes. Well, let's begin this journey. Please share some of your work.
Okay, well, since we were talking love poems, I'm going to read you one of my special love poems that I wrote it for my fiancée. And the title is Talking About Naomi. Her name is Naomi. I would just want to wish her and wish everybody who listens to us today Happy New Year, and wish you best luck for all of you guys. So here I start. Not everyone could be... Sorry, not this one. Wait a minute. I lost the page. Yeah, I love to spend a night by you. Do not ask me why and since when. Perhaps if you smile to me, I feel like a kid riding a bicycle with a smile of the size of the sunshine. I even love to see you nervous, talking like an autumn tinter, and lighting from your two eyes, dripping shy drops of happy rain. I adore the taste of fruit from your lips. Without you, I'm a falling tree, with colorful leaves blowing off. Each color describes my state. Surely only me and negatively. I need a branch from you to green again. Love cannot live over 365 days. Be the home to my new pages. Be the room to my real emotions. Be the guider to my feelings. Born me and die me in your heart. Am I failed when it comes to love you? Would you let me on the piano, since my tears could read my love better, better than the soft mirror of the vanities? Because of you, I'm a flying bird in your heaven. So
Because of
that's the
you, I'm a
final.
flying. All right. Because of you, I'm a flying bird in your heaven. That's
Yep.
beautiful.
Thank you, sir.
Beautiful, beautiful poem.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful, beautiful poem, man. Congratulations, Naomi. You've got a good man. All right, all right. Let me ask this question.
Sure.
How does a poem begin for you? With an idea, a form, or an image?
Uh, Very good question. Very good question. Well, every poem is different. Some poems they start with an image. Some poems they start from the thought. Some poems they even start from like an inspiration. Like when I hear a poem or I read a poem, I got inspired. But I decide, like okay, I'd be like, if this poet can write about this, then I can write about it, but in my own way, in my own wording. So every poem is different. Like for instance, like I can like the dark one. If I'm gonna write one is about depression or anything, it's gonna be always about images. I'm gonna try to put myself as if I was this little kid who was facing the war in my like in a country. Like let's just not name any country, just let's say any country, right? So I'm just
Yes.
gonna pretend I'm gonna see like the tank, the plane, the bombs, the bullets. So once you're gonna have all those imagery, then if you're like if you really have this creativity of writing, I would actually go for it and write one. Like like I have written so many with image. So technically, most of the time, I would say for me, it starts with image, because me, I believe that image. Once you have the imagery done, well written,
Hmm.
described in your poem, then you're all set to be all of it free writing, like to write it.
All right. Well, share another piece, please.
Sure, no problem, sir. So since we were talking about work and stuff, I'm gonna read you one that I wrote it from a dream that I had. It's called "Death is Nothing at All." You might be a brother to me, your unseen friend, and a visible last guest to visit me. If you will come tonight, don't you don't need an appointment. I have nothing to gain or lose, but please come to me quietly. I do not want any witnesses to observe about my death. Talk to me when my parents and my beloved eyes are well dreaming. I just do not want anyone to stand at my grave and weep. Tears are the signs of weakness and sinners and my enemies' tears. Would you mind allowing me to finish my poem about this moment, since I cannot cry with tears when I was blinded from the sunshine? Go into me gently and harmlessly. On my knees I will pray to God lastly. The clouds will rain and I will walk away, floatlessly without the sound of any noise. I'm done.
All right. Where
Yeah.
do you write, Ahmad? Where do you write?
Why do I write?
Yes.
Okay, that's another good question. Why do I write?
Okay.
The reason why I write because like if I don't write, I would always feel like I have so much thought in my mind. I have so much questions in my mind. So sometimes when I write, I feel like kind of released. I take it as a therapy. Another way I should say it maybe. I take it as a therapy
Yes.
because I believe if I'm gonna write it down, I will release so much, negative and confusing away from myself. And also, I write because, I feel like sometimes, some people, like, they think of me, okay, maybe this guy, he knows this stuff, maybe he knows this stuff. So maybe sometimes when you write, you are showing to others that, hey, guy, hey, man, you can do it. Look what I wrote. Maybe you can write better than me. So technically, that's why I said, everybody can a poet, everybody can be a writer. So, by putting stuff inside of you and like putting more and more and more, it doesn't help. You're just gonna end up being more at the, like you're gonna end up more drinking or you're gonna smoking more drugs, but it's not gonna help the problem. So instead of, like going and drinking, like, and start feeling like on the floor because you want to forget your problems or your anxiety or depression, your mind just wants, like to write it down. So once you write it down, you're gonna feel so much different, so much positive, so much like into the energy. Be like, oh my god, yeah, let's do it. So sometimes, I feel like it's really important for me to write. If I don't write, like one time I just decided to take this challenge. Like a friend gave it to me, like don't write for 7 days, and I can tell you, I felt like so miserable those during 7 days. But then that's why after the 7 days, I just took my laptop, I just started typing poems, like crazy. Yeah.
Well, let me ask this question. Let me ask this question. No, instead of my asking a question, please share another piece of your poetry.
Sure, sure, no problem. So this poem I didn't share it to anybody. I decided to share it for the new year for everybody. It's called The Rain. I don't know if people love the rain, but me, I love the rain because it represents so many things, good memories to me. So here you go. Have you ever seen the rain? Every drop rings a bell of memories. Due to a cup of whiskey I drank by myself, I still think of us together in the clouds. Have you ever felt the rain? Every drop touches my sweaty body, tagging my thoughts of you in autumn. I dream about you with colorful leaves. Have you ever tasted the rain? Every drop falls above your lips, dripping down to my broken heart in pieces. I wish I kissed your lips, Stew, before I cried. Have you ever smelled the rain? Every drop falls above the thorns, washing my blood stains from the sad soil. I wish if I would learn to be a grave digger and a farmer. Have you ever heard the rain? Every drop is louder than lightning thunder, screaming my poetry to your ears until I ask you for a dance under the moonlight.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. This is very, very nice. I'll
thank
never
you.
think about the rain the same way again. I'll never think about the rain the same way again. That was
You sure you
beautiful.
don't get ask anybody
Beautiful.
for an umbrella? You get like, no, let me feel the rain.
Oh, listen for the rain. Please share another. Please share another.
Sure. This one, I wrote this one, it was about, for my mother-in-law and my fiance as well, called adoption. When I was a teenager, I donated to a little orphan. Since then, I made a vow that I would adopt her and marry her. Days ago, I learned how to hurt myself by doing bad habits that will guide me to die below the bridge. I lost count of my harmful thoughts. I lost all the joyful memories and moments from weeping beneath the lights of the miserable bar. My mother thought that I was well, as my smile hid the tears that damaged my physical therapist within minutes after hearing me. I lost many chances in love until I met a broken heart. She cried when she knew that I found what I was missing. I found her between all of my poetry, between all of my cigarette smoke. I tried to lose her as I saw my shadow following her. And Anne is the name of my mother-in-law. And you didn't adopt a normal girl. You have definitely raised one angel that showed me life with colors. From your love with and care for my princess, the crave inside of me has smiled when your daughter kissed my salty lips and wiped my tears. Hopefully, she will close my eyes after my smiling face rests.
Some poets are also active in other creative areas, and I know that you're very prolific You're an acclaimed poet. What are some of your favorite non-poetry or literature activities? What else do you like to do from a creative perspective?
Well, I love like traveling around. I love trying new things. I love eating new things as well. Cooking. I find cooking is like cooking is like it's like just like like just being like I love it like the smell of spices, the vegetables, the meat, the steak especially I love like swimming too. I love to see new people, to meet with new people, exchanging like talking about other stuff. You know, like I love doing a bunch of things. Like poetry is not like my own thing. But poetry is like something I would say as a hobby maybe. But I
Yes.
love doing other stuff too. Like I love to read short stories, comics.
Do you write short stories?
Actually, this is my new project. It's gonna be in 2019. I'm working on writing on my first kids book. It's gonna be about
Wow.
a story about the refugee. So this
A
is gonna
story of
be
fiction? A
yeah,
fiction
it's
story?
gonna be about a refugee.
Is it going to be fiction?
Yes,
Or
it is.
all
Yeah,
right.
it is.
Well,
Yeah.
a question for you.
So,
In what ways does poetry differ from fiction?
well, because fiction. When you read a fiction have more details. Like fiction is when you read it, you feel like you're really related to it. Like sometimes maybe like like when you read another other fiction, you'd be like, oh, this is too much not related to. But when it comes to poetry, every line is different. So technically, it can be related to you, it can be related to your brother, it can be related to your sister. So that's what I would say is different because poetry it gives you the space to think more than fiction. Fiction makes you just read and read and read, and once you finish, it's kind of sad, but it's kind of like logic too, like to say that most of the people who read fiction cannot write poetry. Why? Because they don't have a space where they have to think. All they have to think is like, oh, what happened to this guy? Oh my God, happened this. Okay, what next? Oh, this is what happened. Okay, done. That's it. And then when it comes, like I have tried it with a few of the students that I was teaching before, and they read like I gave them like like teenagers, like novels, and I told them I was like, okay, so can you write me a poem about what you have read from this novel? And I can tell you, like most of them, they were like just kind of confused. They're like, well, we can tell you what it was about. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I want you to write it into poetry format. Like just think about it because and it was such a hard thing for them. So that's why I love fiction, but I'm not crazy about fiction at the same time.
Right.
Like I love it when it's kind of be like related to people. Like someone can be like, oh my God, yeah, I can feel, I've been there. That's why I love
Hmm.
about poetry because poetry, everybody can relate to it. Be like, oh my God, yeah, I love this image. Yeah, I was in this thing. But when
Well,
it
that's
comes to
why I
fiction,
believe. Yes, please
so yeah,
continue. Continue.
yeah. So as I told you, like sometimes like fiction can help. Like I'm not gonna say fiction doesn't help, but sometimes like as a writers and poets, we get most of our inspiration from reading fictions.
Hmm.
But if you think about today's fiction, is really different from the '90s fiction. Today fiction is like so kind of like easily written and easily, kind of like voila, this is the whole idea of the whole fiction. You know, it's like I see it from my younger brother who's only like 14 years old. Whenever they
Hmm.
give you them like a novel to read for school, he would just go to Google or Facebook, just like text the name of the novel, and he gets
Yes.
the whole abstract, main point, everything.
Mm.
So I find it like really, I was like, okay, like even like when I see his teacher asking him questions, when I see his response, I find them very like very bold, but like very like very just like okay, this is what happened to those girls, this is what happened, and that's it. And I was like, you guys cannot be creative. That's why I feel kind of sad because I find the new generation of they really have less interest in poetry. They're like way like when I see it here, especially in Montreal, I feel like the most people have love in poetry is like mostly people are my age or above. But younger people they
Uh-huh.
have this thing, but it's like way less. Why? Because everybody be like, oh, you're so boring, or you have this, or you have this, and they're
Well, that
easily
is true.
yeah.
Well, let's take a brief break, and we'll be
Sure.
right back. All right?
Yeah.
evening, everyone. My name is Michael Anthony Ingram. I'd like to welcome you to Quintessential Listening Poetry. I'm here with acclaimed poet Ahmad Al-Khatat. He is sharing his work. So, Ahmad, please share another piece of your work.
Right. Okay, so since today we are on the 31st of December, the last day of the year, I actually wrote a poem about it, and the poem titled Last Day of the Year. Last day of the year and the years before, I have never asked for wealth on the earth or wings to the sky. Will the first day of the new year, will we be drunk or sober? Will we have enjoyable memories or more murders? Sometimes may be a tale, but some orphans still believe in his God man, or wise Christians crying at midnight. The people in the painting are just colors, as human beings love to eat each other's in one broken plate. I wish if I can close my eyes in the dark side of the moon. I only sleep when I feel sorrow is arising. Done.
Name three of your favorite poets.
Oh boy, that's actually I don't have any favorite ones. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The reason why I don't have any favorite ones because I believe every poet is unique and is talented in its own way. The reason why I don't have one because I love reading poetry, right? But if I'm gonna tell you, okay, I have this one who's favorite, I'm gonna lie to you. Why? Because I might love one or two of his poems. I don't love all of his work, you know. So sometimes, like you see me, like going to the books or library, and I go to the poetry section. I'm gonna be like, oh my god, I love this poet. But I'm gonna just read one poem. I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Next poem, not my type. Third poem, So that's why you see me, I'm moving. And the reason why I do that is because I'm scared that if I'm gonna read someone poems, which happened most of the time when I was in high school, when I used to do like my English classes, when I used to read and write, it used to have happened like to take so many courses, and by accident I'd be like, oh no, I took this line from this poet. Oh no, I took this. And so many times my teachers they're like, no, don't do that. Like I got so many warnings, and that's why I decided when I was like 19 or 20, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to add a limit to my life. So that's why every now and then I read every single poet what they write. I'm not gonna read all of them work. I'm gonna be honest with you. I love to read maybe like 110 poems of them because
Yes.
I'm scared that if I'm gonna go over the limit, I'm gonna end up just writing what they wrote in their own poems, in my own poems. Then it's gonna happen that some people be like, oh, I think I have read this poem written by some other poet. You know what I mean? So you
Yes.
don't want to have this kind of misunderstanding, and other poets will kind of be upset, and you'll be like, oh no, what did you wrote this one? We wrote this one already.
Well, share another piece of your work.
Sure, sure, no problem. Okay, let's look for another one. Okay, okay, sorry. So this one, it's called "Why Do I Think Too Much." The reason why I'm gonna read this one is because many people have this thing. I don't know if many people, but I believe many people from my own kind have this thing that they use think so much. Sometimes I even have my fiance or my best friends. They're like, "Dude, stop thinking. Tell us what happened." So that's why I decided to write a poem about it. It's called "Why Do I Think Too Much."
Mm,
Why
okay.
do I think too much about others who never appreciate anything I do? I am seriously tired too. Even luck walked away, leaving me in my sorrows. People treat me as if I am something old, something new, the hurtful pleasure. The fire always wins, and I lose when I help the fire with my flammable tears and to extend. My nights are so dreamless. The giant sun isn't shining as before. My friends are the distant stars. Why do I think too much more than about breaking the rules of life fortune? My diaries are written by the scent of wine and the rain because my hands are weak. I will make a wish. If I fall in love with another being, I will cut myself until I bleed to death. That's it.
You hail from Montreal. You live in Montreal.
Yes, I am.
How has living in how has living in Montreal shaped your writing?
Well, living in Montreal, I lived in Montreal since I was like 11 years old. So
Okay.
technically, it changed a lot of things because you see, I come from a religious family. Like my parents are religious, and Montreal is like a very open-minded city, like open in everything. Like we don't even have like boundaries on everything. I think in North America we're the youngest city to offer alcohol at the age of 18. Meanwhile, like other places in Canada, they offer it after the age of 21. So those things can actually add a lot of things in my mind, especially if you're someone who's writing, like if a writer or poet, it changed. It adds a lot of things. Like especially like nowadays with the social media, you see people who are even younger than 18 in Montreal. They would come to Montreal and they will have those fake IDs and go do anything. And since sometimes, like as I told you, like my university is like in the middle of the downtown of the city, downtown Montreal. So you see all those images that you find, you see them and you be like, yeah, it's deja vu. Like once I've been there, you've been on drugs. Like one time, I would never like forget this time when I was, like in the car with my friends, going to a restaurant and we saw those two young teenager guys, they were fighting like really, like really serious fight, and nobody did anything. When it comes, when it comes to my country, when I was, like I still like remember when I was like 10 or 6 or even 9. I remember once there's a fight comes, we see everybody gather and everybody separate us. But here people are very like, well, how can I say to you? They're very, like, oh no, leave them, leave them. Like, my friends are like, no, no, leave them. It's okay. But you see, I still have this thing. I'd be like confusing, be like, why? But as I grow up, then I start learning. Okay, maybe because we have so much freedom here. That's why, like I said, like if you want to get healed yourself from your problems, your depression, anxiety, don't go and fight with people about it. Don't blame people about it because you know what? At the end, everything's gonna be you. You're the one who's gonna heal yourself. If you're gonna think, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go to church on Sundays only. I'm just gonna pray every Sunday. I'll be fine. Or I'm gonna go to the mosque every Friday or temple every Saturday. I'll be fine. No, it's not. It doesn't work like that. Like I'm sorry to say that, but even if you have a final exam in university college, if you're not going to study the whole week and you just decided to study at the last minute and go to the church or mosque, be like, oh God, please make me pass. God is not going to give you the magic stick and be like, okay, son, you pass it. So same thing with my reaction to being in Montreal. So I learned how to create boundaries for myself. I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to talk with people. So that's why you see, being in a city with open-minded city from a religious family, it gives you this thing like kind of makes you feel like more comfortable, more kind of like knowledgeable about how to deal with things. Some people would come here, they're like, oh my God, I can do everything. They would just lose. You will see them, you'll be like, okay, where's this person? I saw him in school in class yesterday. Where is he today? Oh yeah, he's like somewhere out in like up north of Montreal, and like you be like, wow. You see, like if you don't know how to manage your life, or you don't know your limit, then you lost. So that's why I said to everybody, try to create these boundaries as soon as you can. Even when you get to high school, I know 12 years old, it's old. You want to discover, you want to see what is the thing called weed, smoking weed. Since it's legal in Canada now, you want to try it because you feel like you're an old kid. You go to high school, or even in college when you're like 18. But it's nothing. You know, try to have like you see, it's not easy. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like me, I'm come from a religious family, right? As I said at the beginning.
Yes.
But when I created those boundaries to my life, Michael, they were very hard. Why? Because I did so many like so many things in my life. Some of them like I don't want to even talk about them. Why? Because they're not even something to be proud of them. But guess what? I learned my lesson. Especially like I'm grateful now because I'm 29 and I learned what to do and what we don't do. But I'm not gonna say I'm an angel. I don't do mistakes. I still do mistakes. I still do like so many mistakes. Even my writings, even the way I write my poems. I'm not gonna be tell you like, oh, I'm super good now. But guess what? If I create the boundaries, like you see, like maybe if I do mistakes today, tomorrow and the day after I'm not going to create mistake. Why? Because I know I created boundaries. So it's all up to the people and up to myself. So I'm actually grateful to be Montreal. But since next week I'm going to my country, God
Yes.
knows how it's going to be because I left there when I was 5. So everything has changed, especially after 2003, after the regime Saddam Hussein has been gone. We had democracy, freedom. As you see, like we have more people talking, more social. We have Facebook. So technically, the whole thing changed. One of the things I can tell you, like maybe you know about it too, is like the social life of kids. Like before back then, the only place when we can play, we can always play outside of the homes. Like we can play, like in our, outside of the street. We used to break windows. We used to hit people's wall, with balls, which people used to be complaining because we used to break their windows. But I'm pretty sure if I'm gonna go this now, I'm not gonna see this culture. Why? Because every kid has his own phone, was playing with a bunch of games like Fortnite, like all those games, Angry Bird, all those well-known games.
Well,
Even like
let me
you
ask
see,
this
like
question.
sure,
Let me ask this question. Are you excited about returning to Iraq?
I am, but I'm not at the same time. So it's like yes and no. The reason why I say yes is because I'm gonna go see my relative who I haven't seen since a while ago. But the reason why I say no because I'm scared that all the image that I had built in my mind about my country where I'm gonna go is gonna be like the disappointed and all those images gonna be gone.
Yes.
So I'm worried that I'm gonna lose all those beautiful images I have in my mind about the house I grew up, the cousins I had, the town we used to live. I'm scared that if I'm gonna go now, not gonna see all those imagery. I'm gonna see the opposite.
Well, it'll give you an opportunity, I guess, the good, bad, and indifferent of it, to have an opportunity to write about it. And as
Well,
you
yeah.
said, it can be very cathartic. It's
Mhm.
like therapy to be able to get it out of your system, to pour it out into the universe, so to speak. So I can see that being an important element as well.
Yes, sir. Well, that's why I'm decided to, when I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna actually go there and I'm gonna write poems from when I'm gonna be inside of Iraq. So when I'm gonna be feel like the real pain that Iraqi people feel inside of Iraq. I'm not gonna be like staying in Canada with like the best weather ever we have. I'm not talking about winter, of course. So like I'm not gonna have the greatest life here and then write about them. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna be sitting under the sunshine, under the stairs of Iraqi people, and then I'm gonna feel their pain. Then I'm gonna write about it. So that is gonna be my new challenge. Hopefully, I'm gonna write as much as poems I can. I'm not gonna stop myself.
Well, share another piece of your work.
Sure, sir, no problem. You wanna hear any kind of? Do you have any genre like you wanna hear about or anything?
Anything that you like to share.
Yes, sir. So recently, like me and my other friends, we had a poet. She was from Netherlands. Her name was Dagny England. Sorry, I'm really bad with names. Dagnia Egland. She was a very dear friend for me and for others. She recently passed away. She passed away actually on the 26th of December of cancer.
Hmm.
And the night I heard about her death, I was actually really super sad and decided to write a poem about her because she was a really good friend of mine as well. So the poem I'm gonna read called "Time to Wave Goodbye." Since the day you closed your eyes and rest your bare hands from writing, sadly death became an angel. He always wakes me up to call you. You had took the final exit of this world, ignoring all the weeping clouds that will be floating the spirit of cancer far away. I'm lonely beneath my thoughts on you. Autumn doesn't only below leaves around. Lately, I have tasting the tears of winter. It doesn't taste like chicken or anything else. It brings us simply hope that you are with us. We all who did not have time to wave goodbye, we forgive you because we love you. Although we will always miss you more than Christmas Day, since you're going to be the only gift in God paradise. That's it.
It's beautiful.
Thank you, sir.
as you think about all the poems that you've had an opportunity to write, what have been some of the predominant themes? You've talked about them generally, but what are some of the
Hmm.
predominant themes of your work?
Well, okay, the dominant work of my poems, like every poem when I wrote, I always leave this like tiny space for my almost like, tiny space for my life. Like, every poem. That's why, like one time I had this interview and, they were asking me, they're like, oh, can you tell us more about yourself? And I was like, okay, if you want to know more about me, read my poems, and every poem have a line or two, three, four lines, depending on the poem, about my personal life. So once if you read those poems, you'll actually be my best friend because you're gonna know everything about me, right? So one of the things I would say, one of the dominant things, back when I was 21, 22, I used to have this woman, like as a friend in my country, and we were dating, but we were dating through Hotmail. I don't know if people know what is Hotmail. Hotmail was like the messenger back then. It was like the social media. So we used to talk through MSN and Hotmail, like exchanging letters. And then, like one time, because, she was asking me, she's like, so Ahmed, like, maybe it's the time for you to come over and propose me. Because, as I told people in my country, they're very, like, well, they're too kind, but, some of them, they're, like, close-minded. They're not into the idea of, like, allowing girls on internet. And it was kind of like bloody period because we had the civil war at that time. So I was like, yeah, sure. And I was 21, so technically, on the top of head, you can guess that I was actually like full of like like full of dreams I had in my mind. So she was like, oh, maybe you should come over and propose to me. I was like, yeah, sure, don't worry. So I went to my parents. I was like, yeah, I want to go there. I want to visit my family, na na na. And my family, they look at me as if I'm like serious, and they literally helped me, but and God miracle what happened is like when I tried to apply for my visa to my country, they didn't give me a visa. And the reason why they didn't give me a visa because they said it's too dangerous for a young guy for your age to go to Iraq at this moment because we have such a strong war like civil war we had fights. So I went home and I started crying and crying. But I was actually like I forgot about her for like 1 or 2 days. But then I was surprised that she didn't send me a message. What happened to me? Did I get my visa or not? So I decided to step up and I called her, but I was kind of nervous a bit because I know she was like telling me, "Don't call me when it's like really really important." So I was like, okay. So I called her and her mom picked up the phone and she was like, "Who is it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's me, Ahmed." She was like, "Who's Ahmed?" And I was like, "Well, Ahmed, the guy who talks to your daughter." So at the beginning she was like, "Excuse me," like because as I told her, they're close-minded, right? So I was
Hmm.
like, no, no, don't get me wrong. Like there was a good, like I'm proposing your daughter. She's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I remember you. Like she told me about you. And I was like, yeah, can I speak to her? She's like, what? You didn't hear the news? I was like, no, I didn't hear the news. She's like, yeah, she actually passed away. And I was like, how? What? You must be kidding me. And then she was like, have you ever heard a mother talking about her daughter's death as a joke? And once she said that to me, Michael, I'm not kidding to you.
Yeah.
I felt like the whole life was like, my whole life was miserable. And I was like feeling so down, and I was like, "What happened? Do you mind telling me what happened?" She was like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, "Yeah, tell me, please." So she was like, she was super happy, excited to meet you. So she decided to go shopping with her best friends to the black market, which we have in Europe. It's like here we have like the shopping mall, but with there we call it black market, Friday market, sorry. So she was going there with her friends, and there was a car that came in from nowhere, and this car just decided to explode. It was a car bomb. And so most of the people who were in this market, they just got all of them got killed. So one of those people was actually this girl that who I was dating. So this thing, Michael, I'm gonna be honestly with you. This accident would happen to me from 9 years until now, I would say, or even 8 years. Sorry, it created a big hole of grief in my life. Like whenever I write a poem, I always leave as I said, line of sadness or grief. Why? Because this woman was like the first woman who I actually like, felt more comfortable to into writing poetry in English, more to send my, you know, my people stories to the whole world. So that's one I can say dominant thing that I have in my poetry. Like this woman is like it's always you will always read, whenever you see a sad line or anything, that is because for her.
Mm. Very powerful story, and thank you for sharing, Ahmad.
No problem.
So it sounds as if you've been through, have experienced so many different types of emotions throughout your lifetime.
Well,
How has the I how has the idea of poetry changed for you from when you started until now? If it has,
what
maybe it's not.
Well, it changed a lot because like first of the thing, as I said, when it started like a more like a prose, right? You just keep writing and you think it's a poetry, and you think you're like, oh my god. Once you see like like a few likes, you're gonna go, like I used to go crazy, and I used to think I'm like, oh my god, I'm super famous. Look, I'm gonna share it to 200 groups, and you see people give you likes, and people write you comments, and you think you're like super famous, you're like the next Celine Dion. But then, as I start writing and I start getting like, more like serious about the idea of writing, I discovered something. I start discovering more stuff. I start discovering that many people are actually reading. More people. The thing I can tell you the most that makes me happy the most is one the time when I was, writing poetry, and I saw this request from a, a teacher in Africa, and she sent me a request, and I accepted her request, and we were talking, and she was like, Ahmed, I really enjoy you reading your poems. And she was a teacher, English teacher. Believe me, Michael, my poems have, spelling check and grammar mistakes. She told me my poems were amazing, and she made me cry when she said that. I was like, really? She's like, yeah. I was like, oh, thank you. And then she was like, do you mind if I use some of your poetry with with the student we teach? And I was like, are you serious? She's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, sure, go for it. I was like, use any of them you want. So when you see, like your poems are being taught for kids or makes people feel better. Like one time I even had this, this guy who came up to me and he's like, hey man, I really enjoy reading your poems. I'm a big, you're my big inspiration. This. It's like, but I need this poem that, there's a poem that you wrote, but I don't see it anymore. I was like, I need it. And I was like, how come you need it? It's like, I need it because, it makes my dad feel better because my dad, he's in the hospital. He have cancer. So whenever I read this poem that you wrote for him, it makes him feel better. So it was, about being positive and being stronger. So when you have those, when I start, having those comments and those feedback, it makes me happy because, see, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm lazy when it comes to sending my works to publications or even creating a book. I'm gonna be honest with you 100%, Michael. When I see someone writing me like a powerful comment or sending me a private message, be like, you know your poems makes me happy. Your poems makes me crying because I feel so related to your story. It makes me feel like I'm the greatest man on earth inside of me. I'll be like, what? I'm not Jesus, I'm not God, but still, I did something that actually makes someone feel better, or I made someone happy, and that what to me it counts the most, and that's what I actually start, writing poetry more serious and more like about other issues. That's what I'm looking for 2019. I have so much hope for 2019, so I'm
Yeah,
actually grateful.
I can tell. I can tell. Well, let me ask this question, and maybe it's a redundant question, but do you think you were meant to be a poet?
Well, that's a very good question. Well, as I told you at the beginning, everybody can poet, everybody can be a writer, right? But the thing is, if you want to be a poet, you can just go and write, right? But at the same
Yes.
time, do you think you have the ability like to talk with other people without facing them face to face? Because sometimes people just shy or they don't have the courage and go and talk to others. Be like, you know what? I have this. You know. So once like when I start seeing all those like feedbacks and those people be like, oh yeah, like I really like your poem, this. You feel like, okay, you know what, you were meant to be a poet. Sometimes, I even got requests like, Michael, I'm not kidding to you. Sometimes I can people who come up to me and be like, I really love your poem, but I have this story. Would you mind, write me about my story? This is what happened to me. So sometimes when you read those stories and write about them, you make people feel happy. Why? Because they think they need someone to change the story. So they look at all the feedback. Like I remember one time I had this single mother, who she asked me, she's like, She was like, oh, how much are you gonna charge me? I was like, I don't charge you for money. She's like, are you serious? You should sell your poems. I was like, who's gonna read poems? Who's gonna buy poems nowadays? I was like, to me, once you feel my poem is related to your story, if you feel happy about it, that what makes my day. That what makes me feel happy. Because sometimes you don't need to go to church, as I said at the beginning, or mosque or anything to feel like you're the next guy who's gonna go to heaven. Sometimes by writing poetry, because if you can change one person in like in million, you actually did something more powerful than someone who goes to the mosque and pray, and then the next day he's gonna go kill people. It's better to heal people than kill people, or it's better to write than just go into the mosque and pray and hope that people will be better. Because I'm gonna be honest to you, Michael. Sometimes miracles doesn't always work, but sometimes if you write something small, something that's why see sometimes as a poet myself, like today I would say that it's not easy to be a poet. That's why sometimes me and my fiance would talk about it. I was like, if I'm gonna have kids, I'm not gonna encourage them to the world of writing. And she's like, how come? I was like, it's not easy. There's so many writers nowadays. There's so much competition. It's not easy to go and be like, okay, I'm gonna be write this, 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 this. So many people are gonna come up to you. They're like, oh, you're this, you're this. It's not easy for every one of us, to accept the review, the comment, the rejection we get from some publishers. But you know what? There's one thing that we have. We're all always born. And the moment you're a poet and you're born to be a poet, when you never give up. This is the moment you actually know that you're a poet, because a poet never give up. A poet always give hope to people. Always share what he thinks of good to people. This is what actually I knew I was a poet.
Wow. I think there's one person you may have impacted, and they're on the line. We've got a caller.
Oh,
all right. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Hello.
Area code 203. You're on the air.
Hello. How are you?
Yes. Are you there?
Yeah,
I'm here. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
I called in to hope to share a piece.
To share a piece of poetry?
Yes.
Do you mind, Ahmad?
Yes, sure. No, I don't mind.
Yes, please. Please share a piece. And your name?
My name is Rome.
Rome. All right. Well, welcome,
Yeah.
Rome. Please share a piece of your work.
The piece I have here is called Cold. All right.
Yes.
Buried the food to change the scenery. Needs in me, vices buried deep in me. Fighting for sides are incomplete, it seems. So indecisive from nights, not so black and white. From all that went wrong yet so previously. Peril yet so it seems to be. Petals fall. Dying, I'm withered from winter's feasting. I grew so peaks can meet. It's whether or not we keep peace, these terrors. The plots come with the scenes. We never cannot, and I keep a head up to watch. To see defeat, we seem to relish. Sweet that feeds a fetish just to see what fire hell is. If not for us and suffer disconnected, fears we find comforts. Fears that we never cope in years forever. Never the peers never known, if ever. What's been hidden clever lone, the shepherd, with a herd that thought they led the effort home. But what's the lesson if it's not for better? When it's better never known, I cry alone. I drown in letters written. Foolish pride, convictions never tone, a misfit. Headed fast without the limits to a headed stone that's scripted. Birth to moment when it's dead and gone. Dead alone like living. Yeah, we know it's precious. Down the stairs we heading. That alone, depressions hold resentment. Regretful woes, attest our foes and answer questions. Fails close the chapters never read, we told for fashions. Passions never goals, we lashed in. Quick attractions, never last. Anxieties and flashes. Kept the mind so present absent. Part of never-ending actions, caught up in reflections. Glasses shattered, picking parts up, placid, gathered. Relish moments that I fled from. Past that kept up last, and every first I found my better, felt the worst. But cycle mess-ups, wins was never everlasting. Let-ups, downs I birthed, I felt forever crash. Her grips are just like last, the hopes we everlasting. Grass she holds the past, she knows an era tragic. Homes we used to build to epic castles, just imagine hopes is more than prints. Not just holes we dig, we put for never planting. Plans we never meant for having growth, we balance, cope to manage rope so tight. I might not ever grasp across, I hope. I could to show what's meant is what we have and haven't. Chances given, many fractured. Heal given plenty time could build. Stronger figured meals we hunger passion, structured. What was willed would never come. To know we couldn't handle wills, we stared. In days I never crashed it, driven. Further purpose, that's what's real. It's granted, tests we given still, we manage. Roads to heaven's gate, the passion sought, some thought would never wait. It's meant. These treasures buried under endless mud and pettiness from plenty clustered fuck-ups, clustered meant to look at nothing, meant for pressures just to break, deserve a come-up, not divorce or force of function. What's together if not to build the flexible ways we levy, different levels we meant to help elevate, the difference to find levels we can demonstrate. Compromise will become promise can never break, a bond in silence, paper never made, a short acknowledgement to what was here already steady or at stake. We levered fate, what took the effort was meant to make. I'm blessed, I meant it from the day I said it. If whatever way it still remains will stick and be what's mentioned to my deathbed given any day. You gave me reason, bettered me. You seen a blessing and a better me inside the records. You seen everything that you accepted, gave you everything. These thoughts reflected came so effortlessly. Just how we let it when we let it be. From it, strengthen you gain lessons like you fed them to me. Blessings. I don't doubt what's meant to be a destiny we destined to reach without a question. And the time it's meant to be. And to that time, I hope I keep what's left before I let up and leave for better. Sick of it all. It'd be dreaded to see, cutting it all short, lost. Shredded to see, crop, stop for it, reach top. A cloud get up to see, now what could be a sycamore tree? Tall, wisdom of ring form, rooted in all that a leaf saw, fluent, seeing more than what we saw to do it. And peace.
Wow, it's very powerful. A very powerful piece of poetry about life. I want to thank you for calling in. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Ahmad, which brings us to your books. You've published 2 books.
Yes,
and
I did.
as Rome's poem was about life, your books are about life. Bleeding
exactly.
Heart Poet,
Mm-hmm.
Love on the War's Front Line. Tell me about those books.
Well, the first book, both of them they got published by my publisher, like Green Bullion Buddha. The first one, the Bleeding Heart Poet, was basically like a mixture of everything that I wrote during the time when it was published, and it was technically like about love, life, sorrows, death, societal. And the one Love on the Words Front Line, it was from a poem that I wrote. That this poem got like awarded like a few awards from U.S. And the whole poem it was about an orphan who describes to you an orphan who's in the battlefield who describes to you how he spends his Valentine's Day. So that's why many people have this idea that the poem is about wars, or some people have this idea the poem is about love, but it's actually about one orphan that he describes to you how he spends, how he describes his Valentine's Day in the battlefield, And this book, I would say, it wasn't the best because it had, it wasn't the best book. The reason why I say that it was because when I chose the poems, I wasn't really kind of logic. I just chose the dark ones because when I learned from my experience from publishing a book. If you want to publish, you have to have their different varieties. You can't just choose one, book writing a bunch of dark poems because most of us don't want to just read dark. Otherwise, God knows what's gonna happen, right? So it's always good to have different options. So hopefully, next year, I'm gonna have 2 new books. One of them is gonna be called. Sorry, I have it here. It's gonna be with another poet and a close friend. His name is Adam Levon. We're gonna have this book together called Brothers in Ink, from Baghdad to Iguana. So Adam Levon Brown, he's a poet from U.S. Arab School. He's actually a very good friend of mine. He supported me in my writing, so we can have a book together. And I'm gonna have a book also called Gas Chamber. It's also from a poem that I wrote too. It got published many places. And this poem is about I'm describing myself when I'm in my depression as if I was in the gas chamber of the Nazis, in Austria. So technically, it's gonna be 2 new books. Hopefully, I'm waiting for them for next year. I think I'm gonna only see them when I'm gonna come back from my trip. I'm not gonna be able to see them before my trip.
Please share another piece of your work.
Yes, sir, no problem. So here I have one called "My Fingers Are Damaged." Wait a minute, sorry. So I say, my eyes ask my mind why I should watch those flying birds go to the southern side. My mind responds with, those birds are lucky, they will fly to heaven with broken wings. My mind asks my nose, why do I smell more sorrows from those flammable tears? My nose responds with, those falling tears have lost all the happiness I feel nostalgia for. My nose asks my ears, why do I hear everything beneath the raining autumn clouds? My ears bleed and respond, I hear crying children from the orphanage during Christmas time. My ears ask my silent mouth, why do I kiss more cigarette butts than talk about my depression and anxiety? My mouth responds with, I believe personal disorders are not welcome to discuss with human beings. My right hand asks the left, why do I still have faith and when my world happiness come over? My left hand responds to the right, I'm a fighter, knight, and a poet who writes even with my damage, even if my fingers are damaged. Done.
As we are on the verge of closing out and tonight's program and celebrating the fact that 2018 is almost over, as you think about your life, as you think about your poetry, what do you want your poetry to do, and where do you want it to go? What do you want it to
Well,
do, Omar?
well, like right now, like I'm studying in university, I'm studying history. I used to study political science. Now I moved into history. I want to be a history teacher. What I want to go with my poetry in my life. I want everybody to feel better. Especially most of all of us we've been through a lot in life, especially during the last few years after 2001, after 11 September.
Okay.
Let's just be honest ourselves, especially us. You know, who are people with like different colors or people who are refugees or immigrants. I would say what, time to move on, time to move all the hates we had, all the racism, thoughts we had about each other. Because I feel like people still have this kind of thoughts like, oh, you're like this, oh, you're not like this. I just hate it. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm not tired of it because I'm a fighter, as I said in my poem. Or as a writer, we are warriors. We're all fighters. So technically, our job is just to keep fighting until people love each other. I feel like it's time to stop the hate. It's more time to create more like positivity. Let's just bring the joy. Let's just let's just watch the kids. You see, like when we watch kids, kids they always play together. They don't have this thing. Oh no, I cannot play with you because you're this. Oh no, I cannot play with you because your name is this. Why can we not move on? So I feel like I want my poems to be going away so people can change. I don't want my poems to be just like, okay, yeah, I read the Ahmed poem. Oh, it's interesting. Okay, next poem. I don't want that. I want people to be like, okay, maybe I should say, okay, I should say sorry to my neighbor who I hated him 20 years ago, or I didn't talk to him for a weekend because he did this and this. I would say, what? I want to take my poems to the level where people forgive each other. We're kind of like, we're all grown up now. Especially we've seen everything. Everything is done by, as we see, like by the politicians. Why we have to always, to follow the politicians? Oh, this politician said that. Okay, I'm gonna follow this politician. Why I cannot be independent? Why I cannot trust my God? Why I cannot trust my own values, my hope? So that's what I want to do.
You're a very powerful young man, and I enjoy listening to you. I'd like to invite you to return in 2019 after you return from your trip to Iraq.
I
Whenever
would
you
be
like to
happy.
come back, I'd like you to come back to the show and share your experiences and your stories and your insights. It'll be a very powerful episode. I want to wish
Sure, no
you a
problem.
fantastic 2019, Ahmad. You're a good man, and I'm glad that you're with me tonight.
Thank you, sir. Same here to me. I'm really glad to talk to you. I'm happy that others are hearing me for the first time. Some people they're like, "Oh my God, we can't wait not to hear you reading poems," because I don't read my poems. I'm very shy. I'm joking.
Well, you made everyone proud. You made everyone proud, and you made yourself proud by being here and sharing your work. I'm really, really pleased that you're here. Well, everyone, we've come to the end of another broadcast. This is the end of our very first season. Quintessential Listening Poetry is ending its season. We'll be back with season 2 starting January the 7th. We got some poets involved that night. So again, I want to thank you and say Happy New Year's Eve and have a fantastic Happy New Year. All right. Good night, everyone. Good night, Ahmad.
Good night, sir.
Good night.